What's up, everybody? I'm Adam, and you're watching the Model Aviator channel. One of the best-selling categories in our hobby today is the foam sport bushplane category. But what many may not realize, especially if you've been in the hobby less than a decade, is that 11 years ago, there was no foam sport bushplane category. There was only one. The Multiplex Fun Cub had just short of a cult following. People loved them, and they flew great. I had a couple myself. You got to give credit where credit is due. The popularity of the Fun Cub is what made other companies see the need for the foam sport bushplane category. But as popular as Fun Cubs were, they weren't perfect. There were a lot of things people didn't like. The first thing was that they were a kit. You got a box of parts. You had to purchase your electronics separately, and by the time you got everything together, it was the better part of a day. It would take you 6 to 8 hours to do it right. And then if you wanted accessories like floats, you could get those, but that was another extra charge. And then once you got the Fun Cub together, it still wasn't perfect. It had hard foam tires with very flimsy main gear that was just short of useless if you didn't land really well. And then at this time, LEDs were becoming popular with foam airplanes, and the Fun Cub didn't have those. Plus, it looked a bit like a cartoon character. There's a lot of reasons a Fun Cub was cool, but it didn't look cool. Then in 2016, E-flite introduced the Timber 1.5, and this model would change everything. It was sold as a plug-and-play or a bind-and-fly, so all the necessary electronics were pre-installed. Assembly took minutes, not hours. It even came with floats and optional leading-edge slats. It had a full set of day-bright LED lights, big soft foam bush wheels, and rugged spring-loaded landing gear. And they put all that in a refined, streamlined package that actually looked cool. The original Timber 1.5 was one of the best-selling foam airplanes of all time, maybe the bestseller. But even then, it wasn't perfect. There were things that people didn't like. For one thing, it was a bottom loader with limited space in the battery bay for larger 3-cell packs. And of course, it had a 3-cell power system, which was enough power for some, but not for others. And while the main landing gear was a big improvement over a Fun Cub, it wasn't perfect either. I remember doing one-wheelers with OG timbers, and the side force would sometimes collapse the gear inwards. And then, of course, on a really rough landing, oftentimes you could break some of those OG springs. E-flite would address all these things over the years, but they did it on the longer-nosed, more turboprop-style turbo timbers. That styling was great for some, but a lot of us preferred the more internal combustion, shorter nose look of the OG Timber, and that brings us to 2026. This is the 10th anniversary Timber 1.5, and it looks like an OG Timber 1.5, but it is anything but. This is a brand new airplane. This is everything everybody wanted the OG Timber to be, and then some. The 10th anniversary Timber has a 61-inch wingspan. It's 41.5 inches long. Our example weighs 3 pounds, 15.8 ounces with our preferred 4S battery pack. It has a 3542 800 kV brushless 14-pole motor, an array of 9-gram Melda servos, and is intended for 3S and 4S 2200 to 5000 milliamp packs. Models like this with a 1.5 meter wingspan at this weight are technically considered larger than what is suggested for a park flyer, but that said, lots of people fly timbers in parks and schoolyards. They fly slow very well. Just need to make sure that you're aware of the laws governing flying models in a place like that where you live, and that you're aware of people and property around you. Horizon sells this airplane as a plug-and-play or a bind-and-fly. With the plug-and-play, all of the electronics are pre-installed for you except for a receiver. You choose the radio protocol and install your receiver of choice yourself. With the bind-and-fly, which is what we're reviewing today, all the electronics are pre-installed for you, including a Spectrum receiver that is Spectrum DSM2 and DSM-X protocol compatible. It is a 5-channel airplane out of the box with the potential for more. You have elevator, rudder with a steerable tail wheel, ailerons, throttle control, and of course flaps. And the flaps are slided flaps which enable you to fly slower at a lower angle of attack. Essentially, it makes it easier to fly slow. So what's been changed on the 10th anniversary Timber versus the OG Timber that it pays tribute to? Well, the first thing is the wing has been made stiffer. This makes a couple of significant changes in the way the airplane flies. It flies more precisely as a result and increases the roll rate a good bit. And of course, they didn't leave the fuselage alone either. This one is now a convenient top loader with plastic lining on both the hatch as well as the fuselage. And of course, there's plenty of room within for the larger packs in the size range. And also, they made sure that there's plenty of room to move those large packs fore and aft to get the balance exactly where you want it. The mounts on the fuselage for the main gear have been beefed up. They are much stronger, as are the springs on the main landing gear. And then back near the tail, a significant change. The horizontal appears to be the horizontal from a Timber X, which gives you more overall horizontal and elevator area, a much larger elevator, and a good bit more throw for more positive pitch control throughout the speed range from flaps down, going slow, to the entry into faster, more violent maneuvers like pop-tops and pinwheels. Of course, with any update that E-flite does, regardless of the plane, it's going to include the latest and greatest in electronic goodies. With the 10th anniversary Timber, that starts at field assembly. The wings have quick connects, which make that go much faster for you. In addition to the upgraded motor is an upgraded AVN 70 amp Smart Light ESC. That makes this airplane a powerhouse on 4-cell, far superior to the OG Timber, and still respectably strong on 3-cell while being efficient and giving you long flight times on both. Of course, when you get the bind and fly, you're going to get the AR631 Plus receiver. That's going to give you several things. If you have a Spectrum Airwear capable transmitter, you'll get this array of smart telemetry. It comes equipped with AS3X Plus stabilization, which in my mind is the premier gyro stabilizer in the industry today. And of course, it has Safe Select. If you'd like to activate that, you can assign that to a switch and flip between the two. Also in avian programming, you can go in and program thrust reverse if you'd like, and of course, that receiver has the smart transmitter file downloaded into it so that you can upload that into your transmitter to set your transmitter up for you upon binding it should you choose to do it. We'll talk more about that in the setup chapter. Other than that, everything else is pretty much OG Timber. You have the awesome array of LED lights that didn't need to be improved, and they even pay tribute to it by putting the OG paint scheme on it. As we've come to expect from E-flite, the manual does a great job of taking you through the steps of assembly. There's not a lot to it. There's no glue required. Pretty simple. The part count is quite low. We started by installing our main landing gear. There are rotating mounting plates on either side of the fuse. You'll install each landing gear leg with 2 machine screws each. And then there are brass eyelets and self-tapping screws for the springs. Once you tighten those down, your main gear assembly is complete. Next, we installed our horizontal. It comes with 2 spars, a heavier steel spar and a lighter weight carbon spar. This is to help you tailor the balance the way you want. We utilized the heavier steel spar. We slid both sides of the horizontal into place and tightened each one down with a single self-tapping screw. Next, we installed our wings. There's a single carbon tube. You slide that into one wing half, bring the other wing half together with it. You've got quick connect electronic connections for each wing half, and of course connections in the fuse for those. It's tongue and groove on the front. You just plug your quick connections into place, right on right, left on left obviously. Put the tongue in the front, bring the rear down flush, and you'll use a plastic plate and nylon wing bolts to tighten the wings down. At this point, the only thing left for you to do is to install the push rod into the control horn of the elevator. All the other push rods are pre-installed for you. And then you're going to want to go ahead and bind the airplane to your transmitter and get it set up. There is an accessory bind lead in the battery hatch, so you don't have to have the wing off to be able to do that. Once you get that done, you want to install your propeller and spinner. You may want to consider checking the balance on that prop before you do. When it comes to setup, once again, as you might expect with an E-flite manual, all the pertinent information is here. You have things like CG, push rod placement, rate suggestions. You even have step-by-step instructions on how to program your Spectrum DX, NX, or IX transmitter specifically for the 10th anniversary timber. Now, if you have a compatible transmitter, those are listed here. If you have one of these, you can take advantage of the smart transmitter file. When you go to bind the airplane, you'll get a menu that will ask you if you'd like to load that transmitter file into your transmitter. It is simply the manual setup for your transmitter verbatim. It just does it for you. All the rates are set up, all the voice prompts are set up, the flaps are set up on flight modes so that you can trim the airplane perfectly on all three axes at any flap position. Voice prompts are already programmed.
Flaps, landing flaps, normal mode.
Now, something that you'll notice, my flaps are on switch B, not the normal switch D. Also worth noting, if you utilize the smart transmitter file, you can still go in the transmitter immediately and change anything you want to change. You can change expo settings. We did that a little bit. You can move things around. It has rates set for each axis on a separate switch. You can put those on one switch or get rid of them like I did. I don't use rates. Essentially, I'm just flying a full-time high rate, and I moved my flaps from D to B and the flight modes from D to B because that's where I like to have my flaps, so you have full reign to make any changes in the transmitter that you want, even if you use that smart transmitter file. Now, we wanted to address something that has been confusing for some people over the last few months with the introduction of the smart transmitter files in AS3X Plus. It is worth noting that the stock AS3X Plus settings for bind and fly airplanes, those are tuned and determined by product developers at Horizon Hobby for each bind and fly airplane. The smart transmitter file has nothing to do with that. Whether you tune your transmitter yourself, program it yourself, or you utilize the smart transmitter file, the AS3X Plus settings are going to be the same. They're not going to be affected. And either way, if you have a transmitter that has forward programming, you can go into forward programming, activate the advanced menu, and then make changes to most of the parameters for AS3X Plus in forward programming. You can't get to everything, but you can get to the things that most people will want to tweak a little bit to set the airplane up for themselves. Worth noting, we didn't make any changes to the AS3X Plus settings. The stock setup, the airplane flew fine to us. I wanted to talk about how versatile this airplane is when it comes to balance. You have so many options. We, of course, showed you that you can get any of the batteries in the size range from 2200 3-cell to 5000 4-cell in this battery bay, and there's plenty of room to move it fore and aft to help you balance the airplane that way. Remember that you have the heavier steel spar for the horizontal that we utilize to get more weight towards the rear. You have a lightweight carbon spar. If you'd rather get more weight towards the front, you can use that in your horizontal. And if you really want to get the weight back, it comes with a couple of ounces of ballast, and there's a slot back in the rear of the fuselage underneath where you can tape this in or glue this in. There's a cover so you can make it look nice and neat. If you really want to get the airplane tail heavy, you can. Point is, with whatever battery you want to use, there is a way to make the airplane balance the way you want it to, and you can't say that about everything, so I really like that. Now, we flew the airplane on all the different batteries in the range. It flies fine with everything. There's enough wing. Even with a 5000 4-cell, it flies well. We prefer it on a couple of specific batteries. We are going to do our 4-cell demo on the Spectrum Pro Air 2900 4-cell pack. Love that pack. It's lightweight, gives you a bit more capacity than the 2200, and the airplane's very efficient and plenty of power. And then for our 3-cell demo, we flew it on the SMC HCL 3400 pack. This weighs about what the 2900 pack weighs, so we put them in the same place. The airplane balances the same, and we really like the way it flies with those packs. You can utilize 3200s, and that's about like this if you want to fly it on Spectrum 3200s or something else, but we prefer those. So coming up next is going to be our full setup page. You can pause that and take a look at it. That's everything we did personally to set this airplane up to our liking, and then after that, you're going to see the flying demos. After that, we'll meet you here. We'll give you our final thoughts. Enjoy the flying. We decided to make our maiden flight also the 4S demo flight because I had something happen that doesn't normally happen with a new plane. Now, to be fair, I can fly sport bush planes really well. I pretty much know how I like them set up before I take off. I can get it close. But the truth is, I felt like I'd flown this airplane 20 times from the first few maneuvers I did with it, so we just went with it. I don't think I could have flown it any better if I'd flown it 10 times and then shot the demo. At this point, I pretty much have it trimmed, and now we're just doing some stall tests. Very docile stall characteristic with no flaps, and at full flaps, it just drops the nose straight down. When I took off, I had the smart transmitter file or manual setup in the airplane. At this point, I'm just going to make a few slight expo changes, and then I'm going to take off and fly the demo. Here I am taking a little bit of extra time to really get the airplane trimmed where I want it in the flaps full position. That's one of the big advantages of the flight modes, is I can trim every axis in each flap position. I really like that. It makes flying slow flight much easier and much more precise. Now I've got it where I want it, so I'm going to poke around with full flaps down for just a bit. Handles very well slow, and as you can see, it slows down really, really well. It really does a nice flat spin. The new horizontal makes a difference in a lot of aspects of flight. That is a much improved roll rate over the OG Timber 1.5. It knife edges extremely well, and as you can see, you don't have to be going fast to do it. It does a very good pop top as well. Pinwheel, check. This thing is very smooth, very precise, very capable. It's one of those solid, honest airframes that we talk about sometimes that just instill confidence with the pilot. Let's try a hover and see how it handles that. I like it, and plenty of power on 4-cell as well. This one is going to be fun to do some bush flying with. We've got a little bit of bonus footage for you. I wanted to try a one-wheeler off the pavement. You can always tell an airplane is really stable when you put the flaps down, get it really slow, and cross up the controls this much and it doesn't bite you. That's a really solid airframe. and even on 3-cell, it still has plenty of punch. Check out how fast that fog rolled in. It was about 5 minutes between our first flight and this one. Obviously a far cry from the power you have on 4-cell, but still more than enough to have a great time. Not enough power to hover on 3-cell, but closer than I thought it would be. I've known for a while that E-flite was working on a 10th anniversary timber, and when I first heard that, I was very excited, but at the same time, a tiny bit apprehensive, because E-flite is one of those companies that likes to give their customers what they ask for, and people want convenience, they want features, and sometimes those features add a lot of weight. Things like clips inside the airplane that are plastic for your wing tube, because we can't be bothered with keeping up with that. Things like a lot of plastic around the hatch to make it obvious that you got protection there. Things like gear that is so strong it's built like a tank, and you can crash the airplane gear first and it doesn't break. Well, that sounds cool in theory, but the weight that it adds can be damaging to the way an airplane flies. And the beauty of the OG timber was how lightly loaded it was and how light on the wing that it flew. It was just such a pleasure and so forgiving. So I was hoping that they'd nail that with this, and thankfully they have. They've been very tactical in the weight that they added. I think when they first started putting the plastic around the fuse and the hatches, there was a lot more plastic there because they wanted to make it obvious. Here's this feature you've asked for. Look at what we're doing for you. Well, now you have to really look at it to tell it's there. You almost have to pull the hatch off to tell it's there. It's very subdued. It is effective, but they've added a minimal amount of weight. I like that. When it comes to the gear, yes, they have improved the gear mounts. They have given you stronger springs, but it's not so rugged that it's built like a tank and it adds a bunch of weight. You crash this thing into the gear at 50 miles an hour, that's an unrealistic expectation. It's going to break, dude, okay? But if you go out and bush fly it and do off-airport landings and you have some relatively hard landings, it's going to do fine. It's a realistic, small amount of weight for what they're shooting for, and I really like that. They figured out a very creative way to stiffen the wing without adding a bunch of weight. So the truth is, this airplane flies lighter on the wing than any Timber I've flown since the OG Timber and the very first Turbo Timber. Those were the lightest ones out there that they ever made. They flew so good, and they progressively added features and gotten them heavier ever since. This one flies the way those things do, except because of the stiffer wing, it is more precise and has a faster roll rate. And of course, with the new horizontal and elevator, it has a lot more pitch rate, so it has a lot more capability all the way around. To me, it is the perfect everyday flyer. No matter what mood I'm in, it will deliver. It's a laid-back, easy-to-fly experience, a good, solid, honest airframe, but if you want to push it, it will do any kind of sport aerobatics you want to do. It'll do some 3D, it'll do some XA, and all the while still giving you slided flaps so that when you decide you want to do some sole flying or some bush flying, this thing will slow down to a crawl. It's awesome in my book. Now, when it comes to skill level, Horizon puts skill level 2 on this. I absolutely agree. An experienced pilot could tune this for a student and it would be a fine trainer. Absolutely true. But it will also make a great second airplane for most pilots. It'd be your first tail dragger, maybe your first airplane with flaps, and it's going to add some capability and give you some things that you can learn that your trainer can't teach you. So it'd be a really good first or second airplane depending upon the person. When it comes to the price point, we're in the same situation we've been in a while with the tariffs. They make that decision at the 11th hour. I know the range that they're shooting for. They usually hit it. If they do, that's going to be an absolutely fair price for what you get. You still get the floats. They have the decals that match the airplane. It's an attractive package off water. You get the accessory optional leading edge slats. And now, because it is a top loader and they've changed the way the battery bay is, you can fly it on this huge array of batteries. And you can get the balance exactly where you want with any of them. If you want to fly it with the lightest 2200 3-cell pack, you can put that in there and keep the airplane from being tail heavy. You can get it there. You can put the heaviest 4-cell 5000 pack in there and keep it from being nose heavy. You can literally balance it any way you want with any pack you want. And I think that is a really good feature. So if you'd like to add one of these to your hangar, we'll put some links in the description where you can do just that. When you use those links, it helps our channel out. And when you support us, Heidi and I appreciate it. Thank you. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. Happy 10th anniversary to the Timber. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.